Health and Power Through Creation by Paul Ellsworth. Chapter 3. How to Awaken Sleeping Power. The truth upon which physical and mental regeneration is founded may be stated in this way. The vitality or constructing and maintaining life of the body is infinite in power, in wisdom, and in harmony, and we are that life. If this is so, why have we so far departed from the possibilities of our nature? The reason lies in that very creative power which we are considering. The man who can build a house can also tear it down. The life which manifests itself as health when directed by wisdom and love will manifest itself as imperfection and disease when the laws of its being are not complied with. Man is and must always be a creator, but when he exerts his powers without fully understanding them, he is certain to create chaos rather than order. The visible, tangible, solid things which you see in the world about you are always results and never causes. The typewriter and the automobile are results of man's creative power, wisely directed. All physical things are results, and it is only the life in them and around them which gives them even the appearance of power. And in its ultimate nature, this life is one throughout the universe. It takes upon itself certain limitations, is specialized, but it never really loses the mastery over matter which is inherent in its very constitution. The life which is now in your body is the same life which created it. It has been maintaining this body ever since you were born, and it is just as fully master of the material elements out of which this physical matrix is formed now as it was before you saw the light. It can never lose its creative power, this life, but because it is your life, because it is your very self, the inmost and eternal reality of that personality which you recognize as I, it is limited in its exercise of creative power by your belief, by your recognition of its true nature. This life of yours in your own body is sometimes called subconscious mind, because while it manifests intelligence only limited by the false beliefs which you impress upon it, it does not possess consciousness. Perhaps that seems an impossible combination to you at present, but let it go without argument until you have more to build on. This subconscious life is, then, a specialization of your life which automatically cares for your body. On the inner side, it receives wisdom and power from the divine mind of which you are a part. And on the outer side, it is open to impressions from your thoughts and emotions. That is where you have been doing the mischief in the past, and it is where you now have a chance to go to work directly. As soon as man is capable of recognizing this unity with the divine life, he is ready to begin to use his creative power wisely instead of in a perverted manner. And so the wise thing to do in regard to this inner life or vitality is to recognize it as a manifestation of the divine life and hence partaking of its nature, as being all wise and all powerful and all beneficent, just as the spring from which it takes its source. There is nothing antagonistic in this even in the limited science with which we are acquainted. Medical literature contains many instances of spontaneous cures, many of them so-called incurable cases. Now, these spontaneous cures are simply instances in which, through accidental conformity to the great law of health and healing, the primal life currents were allowed to sweep through the defective organism, cleansing it from infection and from foreign growths and secretions. And what science is too blind and too narrow to do, you who are the master of your mind and body can do when you are willing to turn within and become acquainted with your real nature. How are you to do this? By reversing the process which brought you into your present unsatisfactory condition. You have looked at the superficial appearance of things and have formulated a set of beliefs based on this surface appearance. To these you have added other beliefs which were passed on to you by your parents and your acquaintances. Before the time of Columbus, people believed that the earth was flat because it looked flat and because everyone said that it was flat. In the same way, you have accepted a set of lies because they were plausible and because the people about you believed them. Every advance that comes to the world is the result of some man's having the courage to break away from one of these race lies and strike out into the ocean of unexplored thought toward the unseen truth. He has faith in something which he has not yet seen, and this faith is his compass. Before we pass on to a consideration of ways and means of applying these principles, let us consider for a moment the meaning of that word faith. For without faith you will accomplish nothing in any line. What then is faith? In a book which many of us read in our childhood appears this definition. Faith is the evidence of things not seen. This is often interpreted to mean that faith is a quality of mind which enables us to believe something which is not true, but which we must accept and cling to in spite of its falsity. This is often called dogmatic faith. Now, that is too fine a definition to be perverted in any such way. Edison recently found himself facing a lack of carbolic acid. He needed it for his great work, but the usual supply was cut off, perhaps for years. What was the result? He had faith in the existence of other sources of supply. He didn't see these other sources to begin with, but trusted to the evidence of things not seen. And his faith, like all faith that is backed by wisdom and power, was rewarded. All creators, whether their work be in steel and brass, or in words or in pigments, are men or women, in whom this faculty of turning with assurance toward the unseen supply is largely developed. Faith, then, is a higher vision which enables its possessor to deal with unseen but very real sources of energy and supply. It is not a blind credulity which believes what it has no reason for believing. It is rather a certainty founded on sight, although not the sight to which we are most accustomed. So as you come to the application of some of these principles which we have been studying, don't worry too much about faith. Many of these ideas and applications are new to you, and until you have had time to digest them and build them into your consciousness by the process of growth, don't try to force yourself to accept them. Faith will come as a result of this higher vision of truth, and vision is the result of successful experiment and the assimilation of a well-considered idea. As a basis for the practical work for which we are now ready, let us state again briefly the principles upon which we are working. Man is the outlet and distributor of an inner energy and wisdom and love which collectively may be called God or divine mind. Man's success, therefore, will be in direct proportion to his conscious or unconscious conformity to the laws established by his relations to this divine mind. Man is the outlet, the channel, and every activity of his life is perfectly performed when he learns to do his part and to recognize the completing and perfecting activity of the divine life back of him. Having come by an acceptance of his own lies and the race lies which he inherits from his parents, so far from the truth about himself, how is the individual to get back to the logical and masterful way of living? By recognizing and accepting the truth, and by living in harmony with it in every department of his being. That is the whole secret. But in its application, there is one right way while there exists 1,000 blind alleys. How is he to recognize and accept the truth? There is just one way, and that way has been followed by every great teacher and leader who has broken away from the false beliefs of his fellows and has journeyed toward the light. He must put his recognition of the truth into definite form and must consider it and meditate over it until it is built into his mind and body. And he can best do this through what are in these latter days called affirmations. An affirmation is a definite and forceful statement of truth. Truth in tabloid form, stripped of all encumbrance and all non-essential thought. There is nothing new in the use of affirmations or statements of truth. Jesus used them throughout his ministry. I am the resurrection and the life. I am the light of the world. By the use of these definite statements of fact, he helped realize or make real that fact in his life. And this brings us to the motive force within all affirmations. An affirmation produces results because it recognizes and accepts a truth whose action in your life has been hindered or inhibited by your practical denial of it through disbelief or ignorance. It does not create a new truth, that is impossible, but it brings you into right relations with truth established before the founding of the universe. You have always been the expression of an inner and infinite or unlimited life, but through ignorance of your real nature, you have used your creative power, essentially and eternally yours, through your oneness with the divine life, to create limitations which have been built into your body and mind. You will find them there when presently you turn to look for them, and you will find them very real and obstinate until you have assimilated the truth about yourself. Through affirmation or definite acceptance of its existence, the divine life can be specialized in various forms, as wisdom, power, love, as health, efficiency, cleanliness of thought and action, patience, etc. And all this is done by recognizing the truth, which is that the divine life manifests itself in and through you according to your needs, and by denying and dissolving the limited and untrue thoughts which you have heretofore built into your life. An affirmation may be directed to this divine life within in any one of several ways. In the affirmations which the Nazarene used, for instance, he often recognized his oneness with his parent life and simply stated, I am, with whatever attribute he desired to express or bring into activity added, I am the light. In this statement, he recognized his unity with the divine life and at the same time recognized that this divine life manifesting itself through him was wisdom or the light of the world. At another time he said, It is not I, but the Father in me who doeth the works. Here he directed the affirmation to the divine life in a different way. The principle to be used in this matter of directing affirmations is to formulate them in such a way as to secure the greatest intensity and sense of definiteness. You can recognize the divine mind as the essential life and substance of yourself and so state, I am radiant health. Or you can look to the source of all within you as the Father of your being and state, Thou in me art my radiant health. This latter form of direct address to the divine mind as the source and maintainer of our being is very effective. Whatever form of address you use, the principle is the same. We turn on the current by recognizing it, claiming it, affirming it, and we direct it toward a particular work by the form of our statement or affirmation, and also by mentally seeing it perform that work. Now, let us suppose that you desire to specialize this divine life as wisdom, or the knowledge of how to act in any given situation. Make your body as easy as possible so that it will support itself in your chair or your couch without the tension of any of your muscles. Shut out the direct light from your eyes as far as possible. Now close your eyes and turning your attention within, realize that the divine mind is consciously present there, as it is throughout the universe, and that by your recognition of its participation in your life, you come into direct communication with it. Now repeat thoughtfully and slowly this key thought. Thou in me art illumination, and through thee I know all things which I desire to know. Repeat again and again in the same intent and thoughtful way until your consciousness is saturated with this idea. Now turn your attention to whatever you desire to see in the light of absolute truth. Think it over quietly, but without letting your thoughts waver to take in other things. Remember that the divine mind does not have to be coaxed. Its natural channel of expression is through you, and your natural source of understanding is in it. There is nothing to be forced or abnormal in this relation, for it is the most natural and beautiful and satisfactory relation in the universe. Remember that it is not the little, finite, limited you who is doing the thinking. You have opened your consciousness to the All-Father, and by His very nature as a fulfiller, He is bound to accept your invitation. Don't force your thoughts, but let them think themselves. If you will follow this method step by step, your success is certain just as soon as you get the knack of holding yourself receptive. We will deal more fully with this later, but for the present, remember that claiming the wisdom which is yours as the expression of the divine life, and then accepting it as it is quickened within your mind, is the whole secret of gaining illumination or wisdom. A few suggestions for meeting special difficulties in connection with the use of affirmations will be useful here. Always remember, to begin with, that the divine life desires to work in and through you, and that affirmations are not to force its cooperation, but to key you to utilize this cooperation by removing your obstructing beliefs. Affirmations are like the tuning mechanism of a wireless telegraph. They bring your receptivity in tune with the divine vibrations. In relation to the divine mind, man is negative or receptive. In his relations to the external world, he is positive or formative. In helping you shut out the distracting thoughts which tend to intrude while you are using this method of receiving power or wisdom, you will find great assistance in looking forward to occasions when the power you are holding yourself receptive to will be needed, and seeing yourself successfully using it. See yourself doing the things you desire to do perfectly, and with serene poise and mastery. A farther aid in concentration lies in repeating your statements with such intensity and earnestness that, although the repetition is silent and unspoken so far as your voice is concerned, you seem to hear them with the inner hearing. It is like the distinct enunciation in physical speaking. Concentrate on each word. Realize its significance in the general truth you are considering. Avoid all vagueness and dreaminess of consideration by regarding intently and unwaveringly the meaning of each word and phrase as you reach it. Let us consider the application of this method to the bringing forth or realizing of patience. Patience is an easy, practical thing. It enables its possessor to live the life of poise and effectiveness even in the midst of distractions. Now, if you have considered yourself impatient in the past, just stop for a moment to realize that the divine life or the Father is love. There is no impatience in love. Love suffereth long and is kind. And you are the expression on the physical plane of all that the Father is. With this foundation in understanding, repeat slowly and with unwavering attention this statement. The Father in me is divine love, and I now manifest His infinite patience and strong gentleness. I am compassion, and I constantly show forth this love nature. Now just saying that to yourself isn't enough. You must feel it, must let your body vibrate with the quickening of the spirit of love within you. Let your face picture the compassion you are feeling, and it will picture it if you feel what you are repeating. Forget everything outside and concentrate your interest and enthusiasm on the one idea of love. Halfway attention is worthless. All of the affirmations which we have hitherto considered have been positive in their character. There is a use for negative statements or denials, however. We have seen that the subconscious mind is affected by the thoughts which are directed toward it by the consciousness. If a false belief is held in the consciousness and is accepted as the truth, the subconsciousness will absorb it and will, sooner or later, bring forth the logical result of this belief in effects. The length of time which may elapse between seed time and harvest, however, may prevent your seeing the connection between the two. As you begin to break away from the old unsatisfactory way of living, it will be necessary for you to weed out many of these seed thoughts which you have planted down in the subconscious mind. And part of this work you can best do through denials. In the matter of health, for instance, if you are showing forth any of the so-called symptoms of disease, realize first that you are a manifestation of the divine life and are essentially perfect. Then turn directly upon the intruding symptoms and state, "You are a lie of the senses. I am perfect life and substance, and in me is no root or cause of sickness. You are an appearance, a delusion, and by my recognition of your unreality, I dissolve you and bring forth the truth, which is always health." Use this earnestly and with concentration. Force yourself to remember the logic upon which it is founded, and don't sink into mere dogmatic assertion. A time of active work, such as affirmation or denial, must be followed by a period of receptive waiting. This is called the silence, and it is the place where the realization or making of the real of your affirmations is completed. Simply sit or lie passively, serenely at rest. Remember that the purpose of affirmation is to key the mind to receive, and that your part in the matter is always, in the end, negative and receptive. This period in the silence may well come between your affirmations and the time when, with eyes still closed, you turn your attention to the exercise of those faculties you have quickened. In receiving wisdom, for instance, you first key your consciousness to receive the vibrations from the divine mind. Then hold yourself passive, supremely awake but without formed thought. Do this for a few minutes or until the mind begins to assert its hunger for action. Then turn to the things you desire to understand. One source of misunderstanding I must warn you against at this time. It is easy to perceive the great truth about the innate perfection of mind and body, but this perception is of no practical value until it is so perfectly assimilated and absorbed that it displaces or dissolves all conflicting ideas. Here appears in a new form the old law of seed time and harvest. Your affirmations are carried into effect by the same automatic force and intelligence which are back of the growth of seed and sprout. Your first work will lie in the direction of removing your own antagonisms to the way of living. You will have to tear down the old before you can build the new. You are dealing here with that old problem. When I would do good, evil is present with me. But it is your own evil. You have built it into your mind and body, and it will take time entirely to eliminate it. Remember, in connection with this matter of replacing the old with the new, that action is the strongest form of affirmation. You must not only formulate the highest conception of truth which you can grasp and repeat it, and meditate about it until it permeates consciousness and subconsciousness. But you must act in harmony with this truth. Don't try to preach one thing and live another, even to yourself. The strongest affirmation is positive action, and the strongest denial is the refusal to consider a suggestion or to be hindered or influenced by it. The various devils which are race lies which you have hitherto accepted and acted upon soon become discouraged when you turn your back to them and refuse to see them. In concluding this chapter, I want to give you 5 affirmations dealing with 5 important departments of human activity. Take time every morning and evening to go over these affirmations, putting particular emphasis on those which you most need. First, for body and vitality. Thou in me art vibrant and regenerating health, and I am now perfect in every cell and fiber, in every function and activity. Second, for effective work. Thy life in me is power and harmony, and through thee I do all things swiftly and perfectly. The third, for wisdom. Thy mind in me is illumination, and I know the truth which frees from every limitation. Fourth, for supply. Thou art my fulfilling supply, and I thank thee that even now thou dost bring into my life all that I desire. Fifth, to perfect your relations with others. I am an expression of the love that suffereth long and is kind, and the strong and gentle patience of the All-Father is manifested in me at all times. Don't ignore any of these, for all have a greater importance than you can see at present. But put the most time and attention on those which you feel you most need. Remember that you are not creating within yourself a faculty which has not existed there, but that you are quickening and bringing into activity a form of expression which is as natural to you as song is to the thrush. Don't try too hard. Your part is to hold yourself open to the divine outflow. As soon as you get the knack, you will find yourself showing forth a new mastery and effectiveness in every department of your life. End of chapter 3 of Health and Power Through Creation by Paul Ellsworth.